Welcome back. Today, we're exploring the biggest miscalculations in history that humanity has never fully recovered from. These stories are both fascinating and sobering. Let's get started. Number 1. Australia's rabbit problem. In 1859, European settler Thomas Austin thought it would be a great idea to release 24 rabbits into the wild for hunting. Harmless fun, right? Wrong. Without natural predators, the rabbit population exploded, reaching an estimated 10 billion by the 1920s. This population boom devastated Australia's ecosystem. Rabbits outcompeted native species for food and shelter, causing the decline of several native animals, such as the bilby and the greater stick-nest rat. Their burrowing behavior led to severe soil erosion, destroying plant life and turning fertile land into desert. The introduction of myxomatosis in the 1950s and rabbit hemorrhagic disease in the 1990s helped reduce numbers temporarily, but the rabbits developed resistance. The cost of ongoing control efforts and environmental damage is estimated at billions of dollars annually. This problem highlights the dangers of introducing non-native species into an ecosystem without understanding the potential consequences. Number 2. Lead in gasoline. In the 1920s, adding tetraethyl lead to gasoline was hailed as a technological marvel. It improved engine performance by preventing knocking, allowing for higher compression ratios and more power. But there was a dark side. Lead is a potent neurotoxin, especially harmful to children. Prolonged exposure leads to cognitive deficits, behavioral problems, and numerous health issues. Despite early warnings from scientists, leaded gasoline was used globally for decades. It wasn't until the 1970s that the US began phasing it out, and the rest of the world followed suit much later. Today, lead contamination remains in the soil and dust of urban areas, particularly affecting low-income communities. Studies suggest that lead exposure from gasoline has caused significant drops in IQ scores and increased crime rates due to its impact on brain development. Cleaning up this contamination is an ongoing challenge, with profound public health implications. Number 3. The Chernobyl disaster. On April 26, 1986, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine experienced a catastrophic meltdown during a safety test. This wasn't just a technical error, it was a perfect storm of poor design, inadequate training, and a lack of safety culture. The explosion released 400 times more radioactive material than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. The immediate area was heavily contaminated, leading to the evacuation of 49,000 people from Pripyat and hundreds of thousands more from surrounding areas. Long-term health effects include increased cancer rates, particularly thyroid cancer, and other radiation-induced diseases. The exclusion zone, covering 2,600 square kilometers, remains largely uninhabitable. Wildlife has rebounded in the absence of humans, but the area is far from safe. The disaster's psychological and socioeconomic impacts are profound, with displaced communities and ongoing health concerns. The cleanup and containment efforts are expected to last for centuries, costing billions of dollars. Number 4. The opioid crisis. In the late 20th century, pharmaceutical companies aggressively marketed opioid painkillers, downplaying their addictive potential. Doctors were encouraged to prescribe these powerful drugs for a wide range of pain conditions. This led to widespread addiction and misuse. By the early 2000s, the crisis had escalated dramatically. Prescription opioids became a gateway to cheaper, more potent drugs like heroin and fentanyl, leading to a surge in overdose deaths. Since 1999, opioid overdoses have claimed over 500,000 lives in the United States alone. The crisis has strained healthcare systems and devastated communities, prompting extensive legal actions against pharmaceutical companies. Efforts to address the epidemic include tighter prescribing guidelines, expanded addiction treatment programs, and harm reduction strategies like naloxone distribution. However, the road to recovery is long, and the human cost continues to be immense. Number 5. The partition of India. In 1947, British-ruled India was hastily divided into two countries. India, and Pakistan, based on religious majorities. This poorly planned partition led to one of the largest mass migrations in history. Communal violence erupted, resulting in the deaths of an estimated 200,000 to 2 million people. Around 10–15 million people were displaced, forced to leave their homes and migrate across newly drawn borders. This upheaval caused deep psychological scars and entrenched animosities. The partition's legacy continues to shape the political landscape of South Asia. The Kashmir conflict remains a flashpoint between India and Pakistan, both nuclear-armed nations. The enduring trauma of displacement and communal violence has influenced cultural and political dynamics, making reconciliation a complex and ongoing process. Number 6. The Cold War arms race. After World War II, the US and the Soviet Union embarked on a massive buildup of nuclear arsenals. This period, marked by the threat of mutually assured destruction, diverted resources from social and economic development, and created a pervasive culture of fear. The arms race extended into various fields, including space exploration and proxy wars around the world. The Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962 brought the world to the brink of nuclear war, highlighting the existential threat posed by these weapons. Today, nuclear proliferation remains a critical issue, with countries like North Korea developing nuclear capabilities. The legacy of the Cold War arms race also affects current US-Russia relations, as both nations still possess significant nuclear arsenals. The financial and human costs of maintaining these arsenals are immense, diverting resources from other critical needs. Number 7. The Aral Sea disaster. In the 1960s, the Soviet Union diverted the rivers feeding the Aral Sea for irrigation projects, primarily to grow cotton. This led to one of the worst environmental disasters in history. The sea shrank by 90%, decimating local fisheries and livelihoods. The exposed seabed released toxic dust, leading to serious health issues for nearby populations, including respiratory diseases and cancer. The economic and social impacts have been devastating, with entire communities uprooted. Efforts to rehabilitate parts of the Aral Sea have seen some success, particularly the North Aral Sea, thanks to dam projects and water management reforms. However, the overall environmental and economic damage remains profound and largely irreversible, serving as a stark reminder of the consequences of unsustainable resource management. Number 8. The Great Chinese Famine. During the Great Leap Forward in the late 1950s, China's radical agricultural policies led to one of the deadliest famines in history. The government forced collectivization and communal farming, disrupting traditional agricultural practices. Poor planning, bad weather, and false production reports exacerbated the situation. Food shortages were widespread, and the government continued to export grain despite the crisis. An estimated 15 to 45 million people died from starvation and malnutrition-related diseases. The famine's trauma deeply impacted Chinese society, leading to policy shifts and reforms. It serves as a grim lesson on the dangers of rapid policy implementation without considering local conditions and realities. The Great Chinese Famine remains a sensitive and often censored topic in China. And finally, number 9. The 2008 financial crisis. Triggered by the collapse of the housing bubble and risky financial practices, this crisis led to a global economic downturn. The widespread issuance of subprime mortgages and the complex financial products built on these loans created a fragile financial system. When the housing market collapsed, financial institutions worldwide faced severe losses. Major banks and financial firms either went bankrupt or required government bailouts to survive. The crisis caused massive job losses, foreclosures, and a prolonged period of economic instability. The social and economic impacts, including increased inequality and reduced economic mobility, are still being felt worldwide. Governments and financial institutions implemented numerous reforms to prevent a recurrence, but the underlying vulnerabilities and debates about financial regulation persist. If you found this video informative, Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more deep dives into the events that shaped our world.